Hi, students. Hello, everyone. How have you been? Okay, so I'm back with the Hindu editorial analysis where you get to read an editorial or two with me, right? We discuss the editorial really well. We kind of discuss some bits of it in terms of mind mapping. We identify all the important ideas, right? And the main idea, the tone, the genre, we pick up. In fact, we cherry pick some very amazing and useful words. We discuss those words in detail, understanding their application in terms of sentences, various synonyms. Fine. So I would say in a nutshell, we are leaving no stone unturned to create a very, very robust foundation of your language. As we always say, that language development cannot be done superficially. Fine. This is something that requires immense amount of hard work and diligence and perseverance. Consistency is the key. So if you feel that merely superficially, just solving passages and just cramming a word list is going to help you crack the examination, the answer is a big no. Fine. So you have to understand words in context. You have to read a lot, right? Reading is very, very important. ठीक है ना? तो इन सारी बातों को तो हम करते ही रहते हैं हमेशा. So let's dive in today's editorial. It's a very important one and थोड़ा legal है. अभी तक हमने लीगल वाला उतना डिटेल में नहीं लिया था तो दिस वन इज लीगल देयर वुड बी सम नाइस jargons एंड दिस इज वेरी रेलेवेंट तो देखते हैं क्या एग्जैक्टली exactly है आज जो हम करने वाले हैं विच वन इज द एडिटोरियल पेज टुडे trying juveniles as adults is not the answer. Fine. तो ये पर्टिकुलर हमारा एडिटोरियल है जो आज मैंने पिकअप किया है एंड इट्स अ वंडरफुल वन थोड़ा सा लेंदी है तो बने रहिएगा मेरे साथ में एंड ऑफ कोर्स वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग थिंग्स विल फॉलो आफ्टर आवर डिस्कशन फाइन सो लेट्स बिगिन द डिस्कशन trying juveniles as adults is not the answer. So I believe all of you know what are juveniles, right? And ये proper juvenile आपका एक juvenile justice act है बकायदा. Fine. So juveniles are those adolescents, especially they are the ones who are not adults yet, under 18 years of age के जो लोग होते हैं वो juvenile होते हैं. Hi Vedant, hi ऐश्वर गोयल, okay? And इन लोगों के लिए of course separate machinery set की गई an entirely different legal machinery has been set up for juvenile delinquents as we say. Okay, so this particular article, why am I saying it is very relevant? Because it is in the context of the Pune case that happened, right, where two techies were driven over by a speeding car. है ना बहुत ही हाई प्रोफाइल बंदा था वो बिलोंगिंग टू अ रिच एंड इन्फ्लुएंशियल फैमिली और उसको लेके बहुत ज्यादा बातें हुई राइट तो उसी पे हम आज डिस्कशन करने वाले हैं सो दिस टाइटल वेरी कैटेगोरिकली कैप्चर्स द ओपिनियन ऑफ द ऑथर राइट कि आप जुवेनाइल्स को एडल्ट्स की तरह अगर ट्राई करो दिस इज नॉट द आंसर ट्राई हियर मींस वी आर रेफरिंग टू द ट्रायल इन अ कोर्ट फाइन सो इट सेज कि नहीं जुवेनाइल के लिए जो प्रॉपर जुवेनाइल जस्टिस एक्ट बना है उसी के हिसाब से चलना चाहिए इफ यू फील दैट यू नो दे शुड बी ट्राइड एज एडल्ट्स दैट्स नॉट द आंसर. In May, a speeding car allegedly driven by a teenager killed two young techies in Pune. As prescribed by the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection of Children Act, or the JJ Act, hereby will be referring to it as the JJ Act. Hi Harish, welcome. Glad that you have joined us. Okay, fine. The adolescent was initially brought before the Juvenile Justice Board, which granted him bail under seemingly lenient conditions. तो ये केस से हम सब वाकिफ हैं we all are well apprised of this incident which took place in May. Okay, so that car, that speeding car, that of course was doing a lot of rash driving. It was driven by a teenager and the teenager was reportedly drunk. Fine. और उन्होंने क्या किया ऑब्वियसली दो टेकीज थे बेचारे पुणे के आई थिंक दे हेल्ड फ्रॉम मध्य प्रदेश इटसेल्फ एंड the car ran over them, eventually killing them. Now, the point is, as prescribed by the JJ Act, the adolescent was initially brought before the Juvenile Justice Board, जिसने उनको क्या कर दिया बेल दे दी under very lenient conditions. Fine. Now, This decision coupled with matlab together with, coupled with matlab along with or together with. The tragic outcome of the incident and emerging accusations of privilege being used to tamper with the investigation sparked public outrage. ठीक है? So this is something that you need to understand. Okay? ये हो क्या रहा है? ये बोल रहा है कि नाउ व्हाट हैपेंड इज कि इल्जाम तो लग गया है कि यार इतना लीनियंट कंडीशन के अंदर आप क्यों कर रहे हो. नाउ ऑफ कोर्स दैट वाज अ वेरी ट्रेजिक इंसिडेंट दैट टुक प्लेस एंड देयर आर एक्यूजेशंस और एलिगेशंस, मतलब इल्जाम लग रहे हैं, आरोप लग रहे हैं क्या, दैट द पर्सन वाज फ्रॉम अ वेरी प्रिविलेज्ड फैमिली. And that is true. Filthy rich people having influence, a lot of influence and power. So that privilege was used to tamper with the investigation. This is a very nice word, tamper. तो tamper with something is छेड़छाड़ करना evidence के साथ में, किसी भी चीज के साथ में. Okay, so when you try to manipulate things, when you try to tamper or change things, especially with a negative motive, okay, that is called tampering. तो यहाँ पे यही हुआ, इन्वेस्टिगेशन के साथ में छेड़छाड़ की गई, एंड दिस हैज स्पार्क्ड और लेड टू पब्लिक आउटरीच. वी हैव ऑलरेडी कवर्ड द वर्ड आउटरीच. पब्लिक आउटरीच इज मोर और लेस लाइक अ कॉलोकेशन. पब्लिक एंगर, ठीक है, that is indignation, public indignation, where there's a lot of shock and anger among people. Fine, that is outrage. Following the backlash. Now, what is backlash? Backlash is a very nice word. Backlash means severe criticism. अब जब backlash की बात आ रही है, backlash by the public, backlash by media, okay? तो यहाँ पर एक और बहुत प्यारा एक्सप्रेशन है जो आपको पता होना चाहिए, receiving flack. What is to receive flack? To get a lot of criticism. ठीक है? So we can say that this decision of JJB or Juvenile Justice Board to grant him bail under very lenient conditions received flack from public and across different sections of media. Fine? Okay. My name is Sana. Okay. All right. तो ये बात हो रही है पूरी की पूरी कि बहुत ज्यादा बैकलैश हो रहा है, एक आउटरोर हो रहा है, आउटरेज हो रहा है, जनता बहुत ज्यादा आक्रोश में है. ठीक है, ओके. तो जेजेबी मॉडिफाइड इट्स ऑर्डर. क्यों? क्योंकि बहुत ज्यादा बैकलैश आ रहा है. तो जुवेनाइल जस्टिस बोर्ड ने क्या किया? दे मॉडिफाइड और ऑल्टर्ड और चेंज देयर ऑर्डर डायरेक्टिंग द एडोलेसेंट्स डिटेंशन इन एन ऑब्जर्वेशन होम. तो जो ये अपने एडोलेसेंट्स होते हैं नॉर्मली उनके साथ में क्या होता है, दे आर नॉट सेंट टू प्रिजन डायरेक्टली, उनको रखा जाता है रिहैबिलिटेशन सेंटर्स में. वी ऑल नो अबाउट रिहैबिलिटेशन सेंटर्स. इनके ऑब्जर्वेशन होम्स या डिटेंशन सेंटर्स होते हैं. आई होप यू ऑल नो अबाउट डिटेंशन, यस और नो, राइट? सो the public was expressing its outrage and indignation, and so the board conducted this slight change, rather they modified their order. उन्होंने बोला कि नहीं, हम इसको अभी ऑब्जर्वेशन होम में डिटेन कर लेंगे. विल कीप हिम कैप्टिव, rather not captive, but we will keep him in this supervised kind of a setup of an observation home. This was challenged before the Bombay High Court, which directed his release on the ground that he was granted bail in accordance with due procedure. अब वेरी इंटरेस्टिंगली बॉम्बे हाई कोर्ट ने उसको फुली क्या दे दी? बेल ही दे दी, रिलीज ही कर दिया उसको ऑन ग्राउंड्स. ऑन द ग्राउंड्स मतलब रीजन, बिकॉज ऑफ द रीजन दैट नहीं, ही वाज ग्रांटेड बेल as per the due procedure. Then why are you again sending him into a detention center? So उन्होंने बोला कि ठीक है बेटा, घर जा, मजे कर. Okay. So I think अब तक क्लियर है. अब तक पैसेज सिर्फ हमें कुछ डिटेल्स बता रहा है. It's only telling us about the facts of this very apparently high profile case of a teenager and how the Juvenile Justice Board intervened and they came up with their decree. Fine. And eventually Bombay High Court has set him free as of now. The High Court noted that the JJ Act is not only a beneficial legislation but is also a remedial one. So what were the highlights of this? Fine. High Court came up with this that yaar ye sirf beneficial legislation matlab law. Fine. This is not just a beneficial legislation but it's also a remedial one. When we say remedial one, matlab it's providing a remedy. है ना, ये कोई उपाय बताता है. So it's a very nice one. The push by some to prosecute the adolescent as an adult raises broader questions about the power of the juvenile justice system to address severe offenses like drunken driving and the demand for accountability in cases involving young offenders. Now, what normally happens here is, okay, there are some who are now pushing, who are advocating that this adolescent should be tried or should be prosecuted as an adult. Now, what do I mean by that? कि यार तुम तो मतलब गुनहगार हो, दारू पी के गाड़ी चला रहे हो, लोगों को मार रहे हो, राइट? और आप शील्ड ले रहे हो किसकी, कि हम जुवेनाइल है, है ना? तो इतनी लीनियंसी बरतते हैं ये लोग जुवेनाइल उसमें, तो देयर आर मेनी पीपल हु आर सेइंग दैट नो ही शुड बी ट्राइड एज एन एडल्ट, सारे एडल्ट वाले इस पे लॉज लागू होने चाहिए. Fine. And such demands are actually raising, such calls are actually raising questions on the credibility of juvenile justice system, not just the board, but system in all. Fine. And especially in cases where there are young offenders and that are inadvertently killing people on roads. Fine. So this entire first paragraph was telling us, was giving us a nice situation analysis of all that happened. Being tried as an adult. Now we get into the technicalities of the JJ Act. Fine. And let's understand this. The JJ Act allows for the possibility of trying adolescents above 16 as adults if they are accused of committing a heinous offense. Now, there is a possibility. If the offender is above 16 years of age, he can be tried as an adult. Agar, if and only if he has committed a heinous offense. Now, what is heinous? बहुत important word है. Heinous मतलब होता है extremely shocking and very atrocious. है ना? Atrocious crime है अगर बहुत ही monstrous type का crime है, जो बहुत ही गंदे तरीके से किया गया है, which is very shocking, which reflects cruelty and brutality, ऐसे crimes अगर किए गए हैं और बंदा जो है या बंदी जो है 16 साल से ऊपर है, तो उसको एडोलेसेंट ना करके बल्कि एडल्ट की तरह उसका प्रोसिक्यूशन किया जा सकता है. There's a provision. A heinous offense is one with a minimum punishment of 7 years or more. और ये बताया कि अगर heinous है तो उसकी punishment at least 7 years तो होगी ही होगी. Offenses such as culpable homicide and causing death by negligence, which are common in drunken driving cases, are not heinous offenses because they do not have a prescribed minimum punishment. Now, very unfortunately, ऐसी कोई चीजें जैसे कि आपने if you cause death by negligence, जैसे यहाँ पे it was not intended, right? The person was driving, he was drunk, he lost control, fine, and ran over two people and they died on spot or whatever. So here, this was a case of causing death by negligence, है ना, because of drunken driving. तो ये heinous offenses में आते नहीं हैं. Fine, because they don't have a prescribed minimum punishment. What is culpable homicide? Now, this is a very legal term, but आप simply हम इतना समझ सकते हैं students that this simply means that when you kill someone or you intend to kill and आपने बहुत ही जानलेवा हमला किया है, ultimately culpable का मतलब होता है punishable or something which is blameworthy, and homicide means killing a person. So when you kill a person, okay, अब heinous crimes की कुछ parameters होते हैं and this particular case does not fit in those parameters. Hence, it will not be labeled as a heinous offense. The JJ Act amended in 2021 now categorizes, class, I hope this is perfectly visible and readable. I think this is better now. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, I hope this is readable. Fine. The JJ Act amended in 2021 now categorizes an offense that has no minimum sentence but has a maximum sentence of more than 7 years as a serious offense, which nonetheless does not merit the transfer of a case to the adult criminal justice system. अब कोई भी ऐसा offense जिसका कोई minimum sentence नहीं है, सिर्फ मैक्सिमम सेंटेंस है, ठीक है, फाइन. देखो ना, आप कोई सेंटेंस पढ़ते हो तो अच्छे से उसको समझो. द सेंटेंस इज रियली लेंथी, देन यू ट्राई टू ब्रेक इट डाउन. फाइन. तो अल्टीमेटली इट कम्स डाउन टू दैट दिस डज नॉट merit the transfer of this case to adult criminal justice system on the simple grounds that they do not have a prescribed minimum punishment. So according to JJ Act, this will not be transferred to the adult criminal justice system. Now, this is a technicality and people don't understand this. In any case, when an adolescent above 16 years of age is accused of a heinous offense, the JJB, a quasi-judicial body, conducts a preliminary assessment to determine if they should be tried as an adult. Now, it's telling you the normal course of action that whenever uh, any person fine who's a juvenile and he is accused of a heinous crime, then what JJB does, the Juvenile Justice Board does, they conduct a preliminary assessment or evaluation to find out whether this person should be tried as an adult. वो interrogation करते हैं, पूरा assessment करते हैं कि यार ये जो बंदा है इसको हमें adult की तरह try करना चाहिए कि नहीं. यहाँ पे एक बहुत प्यारा वर्ड आया क्वाजी जुडिशियल. ना क्वाजी का मतलब आप सेमी समझ सकते हो एंड जुडिशियल तो आप जानते हो लीगल रिलेटेड टू जुडिशरी. तो जेजेबी जो है इट्स नॉट अ प्योरली लीगल बॉडी, इसको क्वाजी जुडिशियल बोल रहे हैं बिकॉज इसमें दे एक्ट विद लिमिटेड पावर्स, राइट. सो दे आर क्वाजी जुडिशियल. प्योरली ये प्रॉपर जो आपके जजेस होते हैं और वो नहीं, एक सेपरेट इंडिपेंडेंट बॉडी होती है ये. फाइन, बट इसके नॉर्म्स हैं और ये प्रॉपर्ली उसके हिसाब से फंक्शन करती है. If it concludes that there is such a need, the adolescent is transferred to a sessions court which independently assesses the suitability of trying the adolescent as an adult. Sometimes they may even transfer the case to a special board or to a sessions court, and the sessions court determines whether this adolescent should be tried as an adult or not. So they're telling you the mechanism. Fine. तो पिछले कुछ पैराग्राफ्स में यही बात हुई. पहली बात क्या हुई कि उन्होंने आपको बताया कि यार इस टाइप का जो केस है ये हीनियस क्राइम की कैटेगरी में नहीं आता है, हेंस चांसेस नहीं बनते हैं दैट दिस फेलो कैन बी ट्राइड एज एन एडल्ट. फाइन, एंड देन इट्स टेलिंग यू अबाउट द नॉर्म, व्हाट इट इज दैट JJB inquires or assesses whether a person, whether an adolescent should be tried as an adult or not, and sometimes they take the help of a sessions court where this thing is transferred. Next para. These protections are based on the understanding that adolescence is a temporary developmental stage characterized by immature judgment and underdeveloped impulse control. Now, here comes the main highlight. Why are such JJB and such rehabilitation centers built up? The reason is, and this reason serves well because as a reader, you also might be wondering, कि यार ऐसा क्यों है ना? Such teenagers are so callous, they are so reckless, and they are taking away people's lives, so they should be punished, right? But you have to understand that adolescence is a temporary developmental stage. ये एक ऐसी स्टेज है जहाँ पे बंदा पूरी तरह से मेच्योर नहीं हुआ है. यहाँ पे इमेच्योर जजमेंट बहुत होता है और इम्पल्स बहुत होता है. When you are impulsive, what does it mean? You don't think well enough before acting, right? मतलब in the heat of the moment you act, इसको कहते हैं you are impetuous. Fine. So because बंदा अभी पूरी तरह से डेवलप नहीं हुआ, immature है, callow है, मतलब immature है. Fine. So the court recognizes that. Fine. The justice system recognizes that. This is recognized by the Supreme Court in Dr. Subramaniam Swamy versus Raju and by the UN Committee on the Rights of the Child. Fine. So this is a well-recognized fact. Consequently, the juvenile justice system emphasizes rehabilitation and social reintegration over punishment, acknowledging that adolescents, due to their high neuroplasticity, are more receptive to change. Now, please understand what this means. Consequently, what does consequently means? Resultantly. Or as a result. As a result, because we do admit that these are the people who are impulsive and they are callow and they are yet not mature and wise enough. So कभी कभी ऐसा शायद हो जाता है, उनसे crime हो जाता है. Fine, so they deserve a second chance, right? They should not be punished brutally. They should not be incarcerated or given death sentence. Rather, we focus on their rehabilitation and social reintegration. That's the reason why the justice system says that you seclude them, you keep them in a special detention center and give them the right kind of stimulus, fine, and reintegrate them, mold them accordingly, teach them accordingly, and then try to get them back to the society. Fine. because they have high neuroplasticity. Now, what is neuroplasticity? It's a technical term actually. Neuroplasticity का मतलब ये होता है that our brain is not fixed. Fine. The processes in our brain, they are variable and they keep changing and they get altered with different situations. Fine. So if we admit this, that our mind changes according to situations and adapts. So if a person gets a positive environment, he can learn and he can change himself and he can modify his aggressive and criminal behavior and can be reintegrated into the society like a responsible Samaritan. That is the objective. So they say that, yeah, because we have to admit that such people are receptive to change. These are adolescents, they're not fully formed, and so they can be changed. That is the reason, that is the premise on the basis of which the entire justice system is set. Seeking accountability. Now, what is accountability? Responsibility lena na. If this job is not done, I am taking the Hindu analysis, right? If this is not done on time or on a regular basis, who is accountable? I am accountable. Fine, so you have to take the responsibility. Nonetheless, despite everything, right? The juvenile justice system is rooted in holding offenders accountable for their action. Despite all of this, that we are being really accommodating, we understand the psychology, we understand their human nature. Despite that, we as justice system, we do hold them accountable and responsible. ऐसा नहीं है that they're going scot free. Okay, go scot free is a very nice expression. Excuse me. Fine. So go scot free का मतलब क्या हो जाता है? You are absolutely free, है ना? बिल्कुल आप बिना पकड़ाई के, बिना किसी punishment के, with impunity you roam around. That is going scot free. तो ऐसा नहीं that they go scot free. There is accountability. When an adolescent is found to have committed a crime, the JJ Act empowers the multidisciplinary JJP to tailor a response befitting the circumstance and the adolescent concerned. Now they are telling you about the variability. कि ऐसा नहीं कि एक ही फिक्स टाइप की पनिशमेंट है. The kind of treatment and the kind of response that is given is commensurate with the crime committed. So JJB does that. Okay, and this is a multidisciplinary. Multidisciplinary मतलब अलग अलग disciplines के लोग हैं उसमें involved हैं, कुछ legal heads हैं, कुछ psychology heads हैं, कुछ कोई ना कोई लोग हैं उसमें, and they come up with a befitting or a suitable. Befitting का मतलब क्या हो जाएगा? Suitable. Oh God, right? Suitable kind of a response they come up with. Fine, okay. And the adolescent concerned, a conviction can result in institutionalization of the offender, but with the express goal of rehabilitation. Now, what is institutionalization? Fine, किसी institution का part बनाना उस बंदे को. Here we are talking about the detention centers or the rehab centers. So it means that a conviction. What is conviction? Conviction ये होता है कि अगर आप convict हो, आपको माना गया है कि yes you are guilty of the crime, right? Acquittal क्या होता है? When you're acquitted, you are set free. कि आप बाइज्जत बरी हो, वो acquittal होता है. But conviction क्या होता है? नहीं, आप guilty हो, आपको सजा मिलेगी. That is conviction. So if an adolescent, if a juvenile is convicted of a crime, it can result in institutionalization. Matlab, he will be kept in a detention center or in any similar institution, but with the major goal of rehabilitation. The DJBs can prescribe interventions such as therapy, psychiatric support, and de-addiction during and after institutionalization. बहुत सारी चीजें हो सकती हैं उसमें. These interventions or these methods would be incorporated. Therapy दी जाएगी, psychiatric support दिया जाएगा, de-addiction वगैरह as and when required. An individual care plan is prepared for adolescents' rehabilitation, keeping in mind their socio-economic conditions and the circumstances of the crime. This approach has the potential to foster accountability and healing, creating opportunities for justice that are often unattainable within the rigid confines of the punitive adult justice system. तो आपको बहुत डिटेल में पूरी modalities of this entire system are being explained, that a number of interventions are done, and then a very nice comprehensive individual care plan is designed. Fine, keeping in mind the socio-economic background of the person, the circumstances of the crime, and this is done so that this can foster is to encourage or promote, so that it fosters healing and a sense of responsibility and accountability. Fine, जो आप एक punitive adult justice system से नहीं expect कर सकते. Punitive word I have discussed in past. Punitive is related to punishment. So the adult system is very punitive, right? You don't, it's not reformative, it's punitive. Whereas this is reformative, that we are trying to reform the individual because we see the scope owing to or due to the neuroplasticity. I hope this much is clear. Specifically, in case of deaths caused by motor accidents, innovative approaches have been attempted in Indonesia and the US that enable offenders to face their victims and focus on personal accountability. Now, आफ्टर टेलिंग यू के एग्जैक्टली जुवेनाइल जस्टिस जो है किस तरह से टैकल करता है एडोलेसेंट्स को, कैसे उनके साथ में क्या क्या इंटरवेंशंस किए जाते हैं, उनको रिफॉर्म करने की कोशिश की जाती है, फाइन, इन मल्टीपल वेज. एंड क्यों ऐसा किया जाता है? बिकॉज द अंडरलाइंग टेनेट इज दैट दे कैन बी ट्रांसफॉर्म्ड एंड there is neuroplasticity in them so they can change and they can be reintegrated into the society. अब तक ये बात हुई. अब वो एक बहुत अच्छे indirect suggestions दे रहे हैं. वो आपको बता रहे हैं, they're illuminating us with some nice innovative practices that are done in Indonesia and the US. Okay, क्या है वो innovative practices? कि यूएस में और इंडोनेशिया में क्या होता है, जो ऑफेंडर्स होते हैं, जो क्रिमिनल्स होते हैं, जिन्होंने कोई ना कोई गलती ऑफेंस की है, दे हैव टू फेस द विक्टिम्स एंड फोकस ऑन पर्सनल अकाउंटेबिलिटी. फाइन, तो क्या, कैसे? लेट्स रीड ऑन, विल अंडरस्टैंड दिस बेटर. In some jurisdictions, convicted drunk drivers are required to face a victim impact panel of relatives of victims who express how the incident affected their lives. Now, what will this mean? This means that there's a panel, there's a group of people who are relatives or friends, kith and kin of the victims, and उनके साथ में जब आप ना इस offender को उनके साथ रूबरू कराओगे, उनके सामने रखोगे ना, तब these VIP, the victim impact panel, they express how much they were affected by the incident. उनको कितना उस चीज से फर्क पड़ा. Fine. And इससे क्या होगा? What do you think इससे होता होगा? इससे ये हो जाता है कि सेंसिटिविटी डेवलप होती है बंदे में, है ना? दे बिकम मोर सेंसिटाइज्ड कि हमारे एक्शन से क्या क्या हुआ. A report released in 2022 by Kevin Thompson and Sarah Joyce found a reduction in recidivism amongst offenders exposed to VIPs in North Dakota. Okay. Fine. And we're coming to the end. So, recidivism बहुत प्यारा word है. What is the meaning of recidivism? It is going back to the crime. It is repeating the crime, which is a very bad tendency. If a criminal is repeating the crime, that means he is incorrigible. Incorrigible का मतलब क्या है? जिसको आप correct नहीं कर सकते. Somebody who cannot be reformed. ठीक है ना? तो क्लास में आपको अलग से भी कुछ कुछ वर्ड्स बताती हूँ अपने तरफ से. It's not just telling you the meaning of the words that come here in the editorial, but separately also I give you my inputs. Fine. So this says कि रिपोर्ट है और वो बता रही है कि इस चीज से क्या हुआ है, रिपीट क्राइम्स बहुत कम हुए हैं. फाइन, जहां जहां पे भी वीआईपीज, बिकॉज पर्सन फील्स द पेन ऑफ द किथ एंड किन ऑफ द पर्सन हु वाज एक्सपोज्ड टू द क्राइम, राइट? तो जो विक्टिम था बेचारा, उसका पेन और उसके घर वालों का पेन समझ में आता है. सो दैट हैज एक्चुअली लेड टू reduction in repeat crimes. While this can never change the life altering incident itself, it personalizes the loss and grief experienced by the victim and gives an opportunity to the offender to express regret. This cannot change what has happened, right? You cannot go back in time and change the incident, but it helps the offender also to express regret, and this sensitizes the offender. He feels or is able to experience what loss and grief the family is going through. Practices like this recognize the victim and their family as central to the process of justice dispensation, in contrast to the traditional penal system, where the victim is reduced to a witness or is not involved at all as the state takes over prosecution. Prosecution का क्या मतलब होता है? Simply trial, है ना? किसी को prosecute करना मतलब try somebody under law, ठीक है ना? उस पर केस करना, prosecute करना. Dispensation बहुत प्यारा word है. What is dispensation? Dispensation simply means a system. So when I say the legal dispensation, right, or the justice dispensation, I mean the justice system. Fine. If I say the current dispensation of the country, the ruling dispensation, I mean the ruling system, or I mean the government that is in power. Fine. The dispensation is the fancy word for such a simple thing, system. Okay. तो ये कहते हैं कि इस टाइप की प्रैक्टिसेस जो होती हैं वो अलाउ करती हैं फैमिली को भी इन्वॉल्व होने में इन द जस्टिस सिस्टम, वेयर इज द ट्रेडिशनल पेनल सिस्टम और द ट्रेडिशनल लीगल सिस्टम, द विक्टिम इज very sidetracked. Okay, he's just a witness or maybe sometimes not at all involved in the process. They create space for the needs of the victims that may range from compensation to an apology or explanation or acknowledgement of responsibility by the offender. तो यहाँ पे आपसे भी बोला जाता है कि इससे क्या होता है कि बहुत सारे ऑप्शंस भी खुल जाते हैं. Sometimes maybe just an apology can work, or maybe the convict may in fact even offer an explanation or an acknowledgement. So there are a myriad of outcomes that stem out from this particular situation. अगर आप इस तरह से VIP को include करोगे तो. They also expose adolescents to an education regarding accountability and sensitivity to follow human beings to foster their transformation into responsible adults. Obviously, ठीक है ना? एक आपको प्रॉपर एजुकेशन मिलती है कैसे सेंसिटिव बनना है, कैसे अकाउंटेबल बनना है, so that you can transform into responsible citizens. Facing the victims or their families can be a powerful and transformative experience for offenders. Responses of the juvenile system can include the family members and the communities of both the offender and the victim, and can involve counseling the offender's family. ठीक है, तो you can include family members and communities of both, not just the victim but the offender also, right? और इससे क्या हो सकता है, काफी काउंसलिंग का प्रोसेस और माहौल बन सकता है. हाय मुस्कान. This approach recognizes that crime is often the outcome of a complex interplay of societal and psychological factors. इससे हमें समझ में आता है कि जो क्राइम है, this is not done like उसको तो superficially नहीं देखना चाहिए. It's an interplay. Multiple factors are at play when you behave a particular way. फाइन. तो सोशल फैक्टर्स हैं, साइकोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स हैं जिसकी वजह से एक इंसान जो है क्राइम कर बैठता है. ओके, तो ये अप्रोच उन सारे फैक्टर्स को एक्नॉलेज करती है. एंड द लास्ट फ्यू लाइंस, however the potential of the juvenile justice system remains unfulfilled. बस यहाँ पे वो यही बोल रहे हैं, लेकिन ये जो जुवेनाइल जस्टिस सिस्टम है उसका पोटेंशियल अभी भी अनफुलफिल्ड है. वी हैव नॉट बीन एबल टू टैप इनटू द कंप्लीट पोटेंशियल ऑफ दिस सिस्टम. Trying adolescents as adults sidesteps the problem of weak implementation of the juvenile system. Now here, the author comes back to that basic matter or crux of the matter, that whether we should try adolescents as adults or not. जितना ह्यूमैनिटेरियन अप्रोच उन्होंने बताया और जो प्रैक्टिसेस यूएस और इंडोनेशिया में हो रही हैं, इनोवेटिव प्रैक्टिसेस वो कोट करी, उससे साफ समझ में आ रहा है कि ऑथर ये फील करती हैं कि नहीं, इससे कुछ सोल्यूशन नहीं निकलेगा. फाइन. इनफैक्ट वो ये बोलती है कि अगर हम एडोलेसेंट्स को एडल्ट्स की तरह ट्राई करेंगे इन द ऑफ कोर्स इन द कोर्ट, फाइन, तो this is simply sidestepping or ignoring the problem of weak implementation. JJ के साथ में ये प्रॉब्लम है that they are actually doing a weak implementation. इनका जो implementation है वो क्या है, weak है. फाइन. बट इनका फाउंडेशन गलत नहीं है, इनका अप्रोच तो बहुत सही है. फाइन. The issue lies not in the perceived leniency or misuse of the system, but rather in the failure to fully implement its foundational principles. So issue ये नहीं है that they are very lenient, they are very like lenient तो आप सभी समझते हो, very easy Not at all strict. Issue ये है that they are not able to implement it properly. Their foundation principles are also very good. You know, they're adolescents, they are, they have neuroplasticity, they can change, they should be reintegrated, they should be reformed, they should be given a chance. The principles are valid, but the implementation is weak. Yes, मुस्कान मैं रोज करवाती हूँ Monday to Friday. ठीक है? ओके, आई होप दैट आंसर्स, सो आई वांट टू सी यू इन द सेशन. चलिए ठीक है, तो अब ये हमारा पूरा लेंदी सा एडिटोरियल पूरा हो गया. आज हम एक ही एडिटोरियल कर पाएंगे बिकॉज दिस वाज लेंदी. फाइन. एंड नाउ वी मूव टू एनालिसिस पार्ट. अभी तो हमने पढ़ के समझा है, अब हम कुछ बहुत ही पॉइंटेड एनालिसिस करने वाले हैं. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, trying juveniles as adults is not the answer. ये जो आपका एडिटोरियल था, इसका मेन आइडिया क्या होना चाहिए? सी, whenever you read something, you should at least, if you don't have a point to point assimilation of the key ideas, at least you must come up with a very clear and lucid main idea of the entire passage. That's a must. अगर वो भी नहीं हो रहा है तो it's a very very big question. Okay, so ये main idea है, trying juveniles as adults is ineffective. The Juvenile Justice Act emphasizes rehabilitation over punishment, recognizing adolescents' potential for change. Innovative approaches like victim impact panels promote accountability, but the system's potential is hindered by weak implementation, not leniency. So I think this is a beautifully put up main idea. सारे जो important points एकदम brief में cover हो गए कि this trying juveniles as adults is not the right thing. It's a matter of weak implementation, but the principles are right. They are legit because adolescents are susceptible to change, right? So we should try to reform them and not just punish them. टोन क्या होगी? आई वुड से काफी आर्ग्यूमेंटेटिव टोन है बिकॉज द ऑथर, देखो आर्ग्यूमेंटेटिव टोन क्या होती है? when the author has a very strong stance or an opinion, कोई ओपिनियन है जो ऑथर अपनी राइटिंग में एक्सप्रेस करते हैं और फिर उसको सपोर्ट करने के लिए दे कम अप विद लॉजिकल रीजंस, फैक्ट्स टू सपोर्ट देयर ओपिनियन और टू सपोर्ट देयर पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू. ये होता है एक आर्गुमेंटेटिव पैसेज में. So the passage is written with the objective to actually very assertively put up their opinion and to back their opinion through logic. That is the characteristic of an argumentative passage. And here, very categorically, the author has put up in the heading of the article itself that trying juveniles as adults is not the solution. है ना? और फिर पूरे पैसेज में उन्होंने रीजंस दिए ऐसा क्यों. डोमेन जॉनरा लीगल एंड सोशल जस्टिस डिस्कोर्स. ऑफ कोर्स दिस इज पर्टेनिंग टू लीगल एंड सोशल जस्टिस, and so it's about the discourse on that. Discourse क्या होता है? Any kind of a discussion, whether written or oral, can be called a discourse. Fine. चलिए ठीक है, ये कुछ की पॉइंट. सबसे पहले इंसिडेंट इन पुणे बताया because I've explained that so beautifully to you in vivid details. I think I would just be superficially just summarily going through all the points. So incident in Pune बताया, speeding car driven by teenager killed two techies. JJB ने grant कर दी bail. It sparked public outrage because it was labeled as a very lenient thing, and it was done because the person was from a very privileged family. The offender was from a rich family. फिर आपको बताया गया JJ Act की details, that JJ Act जो है वो क्या करता है, टिपिकली किस तरीके से हैंडल करता है ऐसे केसेस को. एंड हाई कोर्ट ने उसको बताया बेनिफिशियल और remedial, sorry. And there is a demand, if at all a demand, to try adolescent as an adult, जो काफी उठ रही है कि इसको adult की तरह करो. ये it raises questions on this entire system. फिर डिटेल में आपको बताया गया कि किस सिचुएशन में an adolescent can be tried as an adult. तो वो उन्होंने बताया, if the adolescent is over 16 years of age and commits a heinous offense, then he can be tried as an adult. Drunken driving offenses normally इस ambit में नहीं आते हैं. Assessment by JJB, किस तरह से वो assess करते हैं कि adolescent को हमें adult की तरह try करना चाहिए कि नहीं. They consider the developmental stage and the ability for change. Fine. How? Because of neuroplasticity in adolescents, they prefer rehabilitation or reformation over punishment. Fine. Yes, and they do multiple of interventions like therapy and de-addiction. Finally, the author has cited some innovative accountability approaches practiced in US and Indonesia, where there are victim impact panels which help offenders understand the impact of their actions. इससे उनमें accountability और बढ़ती है और रेसिडिविज्म भी जो है वो हुआ है, मतलब जो क्राइम है वो रिपीट नहीं करते हैं लोग. फाइनली आपको लास्ट पॉइंट यही है कि वीक इम्प्लीमेंटेशन है इस पूरे सिस्टम में, लीनियंसी का मुद्दा नहीं है. ओके, एंड प्रिंसिपल्स शुड बी नाइसली अप्लाइड. दैट्स द सॉल्यूशन. ओके, सो आई होप द पैसेज इज crystal clear to you. Some nice words, and that's the end of the discussion. To tamper is to interfere with something in a way that alters, damages, or affects its accuracy or integrity. Sentence had the suspect attempted to tamper with the evidence by altering the crime scene before the authorities arrived. छेड़छाड़ करी एविडेंस के साथ में इससे पहले पुलिस आती है ना. Synonyms: manipulate, interfere, meddle. To meddle with something is also to interfere and try to rig it. Backlash: strong negative reaction, severe criticism in response to something. Okay. Sentence: the controversial bill sparked backlash from the affected community. Synonyms: resistance, criticism, reprisal. Okay, reprisal क्या होता है? Retaliation. A very negative kind of a retaliation. Neuroplasticity: brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections. It allows the brain to adapt to new situations. इसी context में हमने use किया है. Okay, sentence: neuroplasticity allows the brain to adapt and reorganize. See, it's a technical term, ये jargon है, तो इसके synonyms भी थोड़े technically type के आएंगे, है ना. कैसे ब्रेन अलाउ करता है अपने आप को अडेप्ट और रीऑर्गेनाइज कर लेता है जब भी कोई नया एक्सपीरियंस होता है, कोई इंजरी होती है, एंड देयर बाय अलाउज द ह्यूमन बीइंग टू चेंज इटसेल्फ, राइट. Synonyms: neurogenesis, neural plasticity. Okay. Heinous is very wicked or shockingly evil. The judge described the heinous crime as detestable and deserving of severe punishment. Detestable is worth hating. Nafrat ke layak, abominable. Fine. Atrocious would be the synonym. Grievous, abominable, monstrous. क्रूरता वाला कोई कुछ आपने कुछ ऐसा एक्शन किया, that's heinous. Quasi judicial, semi judicial. There is some judicial characteristics but is not a full judicial body. The committee acts in a quasi judicial capacity, reviewing appeals and making decisions based on legal principles and evidence, but it's not a fully judicial body itself. Semi judicial और इवन ट्रिब्यूनल काइंड ऑफ अ थिंग, जो ज्यादा एडवाइजरी चीजें करते हैं बट बहुत ऐसा मीडिएशन या कंसिलिएशन वाली चीजें करते हैं, बट बहुत स्ट्रिक्टली एकदम कोर्ट की तरह नहीं काम करते. रेसिडिविज्म: द टेंडेंसी ऑफ अ कन्विक्टेड क्रिमिनल टू रीऑफेंड, है ना. तो रिपीट जब होते हैं क्राइम्स वो रेसिडिविज्म होता है. फाइन. द प्रोग्राम एम्स टू रिड्यूस रेसिडिविज्म rates by providing inmates with vocational training and counseling. Inmates कौन है? अगर वो prisoners हैं तो वो prison inmates हैं, अगर वो detention center में है तो भी वो inmates हैं. Synonyms: repeat offending, decadence, relapse. Relapse भी कोई चीज recur कर रही है, ठीक है. Decadence morally जब तुम degenerate होते रहते हो, morally जब तुम decline होते रहते हो, बद से बदतर होते रहते हो, तो वो recidivism कह सकते हैं, ठीक है ना. So it was a lengthy one, इसलिए आज एक ही cover किया class, but then we have learned a couple of things, and it was important कि legal भी कुछ terminology आ जाए. If at all ever in front of you, you should not baffle. You must have some terminology with you, and so that you can actually navigate through the passage without getting ruffled up, right? So this is the power of eclectic reading. This is the reason why I always suggest that you must do diverse reading, so that every genre should be familiar to you, and you must be able to comprehend it impeccably. So that's all for today, class. I'll catch you in my next session that is lined up tomorrow. Bye bye. Take care. Thank you so much. Stay blessed. Keep reading.